welcome to the Throw-In Hurling show with me, Michael Verney, and delighted to be joined once again by Eddie Brennan and John Mullane to look back on a heart-stopping weekend of hurling action. John, I suppose there's only really one place to start, and I think that's Ennis. Just talk to me through your emotions in those closing minutes. Looked like you were going to get something out of that game, and then we had plenty of controversy around a 65 or whether it wasn't a 65. Just talk me through your emotions in those closing minutes and even after the final whistle.
Yeah, well, I suppose yesterday myself and Dalo were both doing joint commentary with Pádraig Lodge. For me, I suppose the game probably took on a life of its own with about 20 minutes to go. It was a strange game, Verney, to tell you the truth. I suppose, look, Clare got off to a great start. They were 8 points to 4 up, and I suppose there was worrying signs for Waterford early doors, and I kind of even turned on Dale. I said, geez, this could be a tough day for us. Then they got the goal. No, we came back with three points in a row, and we closed the gap. And then Clare went up and got the two scores or the two goals. Great pass by Rogers. The other one then was Dave Fitzgerald. But I suppose what's so important in the game now, and probably so important in coaching now, is tracking. And I suppose there was miscommunication within and a breakdown in structure, which was highlighted last night within the Waterford defence. It's so key now in regards tracking, in regards coaching, being tuned on. You nearly need eyes in the back of your head. And Clare got 2 goals from players not being tracked. In saying that, then the easy thing for Waterford would have been to just kind of drop their heads. They didn't. They came back, roll up the sleeves. And any time there was a setback, to be fair to Waterford, even in the second half, you know, goals again came in the second half. Rogers got the goal. Kelly got the goal. Waterford just kept coming back, showed an awful lot of character, showed an awful lot of resilience. And you just felt there, I even said it to Dalo at half time, like, you know, Clare were sloppy, were missing scoring opportunities on other days that they'd put over the bar. And I said, you know, you might rule those misses. And if Waterford could bring Clare down the home straight, ask a few questions, it could get a bit tense. And that's what it did. It got a bit tense. Squeaky bum time kicked in. And I suppose Rogers had the opportunity then to throw the buffer out. To throw the buffer out to 4 points. He missed that point, and you could see it happening. Then Waterford, long ball in, Patrick Fitzgerald got fouled, and then
going to ground. I'd say he was going to ground before he was touched, but he was looking for the penalty and he got it.
Yeah, and look, he you know, it was great credit has to go to him, you know, for such a young lad to come in, and he had a big impact. Both of his players had a big impact, and to be fair, Stephen Bennett was unbelievable. Barron was starting to come into it. It's a bit strange that they decided to take the two boys off, but I suppose the Waterford management probably felt that, you know, they would have to give in so much to the cause that they get fresh legs in. And then I suppose Waterford then probably I'd say what came into some of the lads' heads was going back to the Tipperary game where, you know, they were probably being called out. Why didn't you give away the free for when Tipperary got in that goal? And they decided to give away a free in probably a good position. We're going to give away a free. Kelly stepped up, and I was thinking in my own mind, geez, this is 98 all over again. Paul Flynn stepping up, probably similar distance out. And then we had the big rigmarole of the 65. My initial thoughts were that it went down off of Shane O'Donnell. Looking back now, I think the umpire probably got the call right. It probably did go off a Waterford player, but the umpire was probably getting all the plaudits last night. It was the right call, and fair play to him. It was the right guess, and it was a 50-50 guess, and nothing more. He guessed right. He took a chance on guessing. I would then question, you know, the umpire, they missed one that they missed in the first half with Jack Pendergast going through. Ava Quilligan clearly put the ball out for a 65. That 65 wasn't given. I would then question where Mark Rogers hit the 65. An awful lot of people are saying that he brought it in and it was nearly he gained the yard.
Just on that, Mull, I think that's why the Waterford lads were going mad, and that's why Stephen Bennett was going mad, because he basically, the linesman the umpire should have his hand up where the ball went out, and that was about 20, 25 yards away from the goals. The linesman should be standing directly in line with where the umpire is, but because of the hoo-ha of it all, the umpire was probably a bit frazzled. He just put his hand up, he stayed standing in beside the post, so Rodgers could kind of put the ball wherever he wanted. I think a lot of people thought it was because he was putting the ball inside the 65-yard line. I don't think there was much of an issue with that. No. It was more the fact that it was nearly directly in front of the post, and that was not where the ball went out.
And that's what angered the likes of Peter Queally, it angered Stephen Bennett, it angered Davy Fitzgerald, and you could see why they were so angry, because instead of it possibly being 60-40 against Mark Rodgers putting the ball over the bar, now it became a 60-40 shot of him putting the ball straight over the bar. And I'd even question some of the umpires' decisions, you know, even being live up there. Some of the stuff that was happening, you know, some of the silly stuff that, you know, you get sent down on the aftermath of the match from players on both teams within the full back line, pulling and dragging off the ball. And I just think, lads, the time has come now. The time has come. We've been banging the drum, said it last year. Yeah. We've said it this year, that there's too much at stake. There's too much at stake. You've referees doing linesmen. You've referees, good referees then are doing the matches. But I think the time has come now. And I even listened to Fergal Horgan on, I think it was a podcast on Tipperary FM. He said when he goes to the matches, he've two referees, one referee behind one goal and one referee behind the other goal. And I think it's coming down to that now, that there's so much at stake. These players are putting their life on hold for 8-9 months a year, and I think they deserve the best, and that everything is put in place for them, that these mistakes, which are becoming so costly, and the margins are so small now, that they're having a major effect on results. And I think something has to give. And I think what's going to give is that I think some referees are going to now have to become umpires. I feel.
On that, John, I agree. There has to be, I know we don't want to go near VAR, full-blown VAR, but we definitely need a little form of it. Surely to God, 30, 40 seconds, get the angle up, have a quick look. Yeah, confirm that's just, you know, whatever. Try get it right. Try protect the officials from all this stir and this hoo-ha at the end of it, and the stuff you see online. Like, there was a picture emerged of that ball out over the line. There is 3 players blocking the umpire's view to see that ball. So, like you said there, it's pure guesswork. And fair enough, he got it right. But the fact that you're guessing in something so is not good enough for players that, as like you said, are putting their lives on the line. And also, lads, like a small little thing too. Like, in my view, Hawkeye is everywhere or Hawkeye is nowhere. Because you go up to Thurles and you get Hawkeye decisions, you go to Croke Park, you get Hawkeye decisions. What if that decision, the Hawkeye, like, and the umpires and people doing it are only human, but what if that decision is below in Páirc Uí Chaoimh or down in Limerick, and you see yourself, like, lads know, God, that's inside. Like, players will know. So, like, we need, if you want to keep the players happy, consistency is the name of the game. And I think that the GA as a whole, or even the referees body, like, referees should not be getting, you know, the way they're opened up to massive scrutiny. But if this would help take some of the pressure off them, like I said it before, take the time off them, all that stuff. And every time there's a stoppage, stop the clock or whatever, something like that. But there's surely ways of helping the officials and helping everyone. That I think if players see that, hey, this type of mad stuff doesn't happen, I think they'll accept that there's decisions you get. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. We all accept that. But I think if we can help the situation to get the calls right without interfering with the game overly, and I know you say you start that, where do you stop? But I just still think there's a couple of decisions there in matches which we can see very quickly on replays. Why not feed that information down to the refs and get it right, and everyone will be happy?
I think when
go on. But going back to it, all right, if you had 2 referees behind the goal and 2 referees, there are more eyes that are going to help the referee on the field. So just take it. A referee who I'd an enormous amount of time for would have been Barry Kelly. Barry Kelly would always taught you, Jay, cut it out one more time, and that's it. You're going in the book. If just say, for instance, if you had Barry Kelly behind the goal yesterday, right? Now Barry is retired now, but Barry would be fit enough then to run over. He'd see what way things are going to unfold. He'd run over. He'd keep his eyes on it. He'd say, Jesus, what's going to unfold here? He can then see whether who got the last flick or who did it go off it. In the instance where you have a fullback or a cornerback who is, you know, pulling the lad off the ball, he's then saying to that cornerback or the fullback, cut it out one more time. You're going in the book. You're going to be a yellow card. And we've seen, lads. We've seen even now the effect of the black card. It's starting to work, even on Rodgers going through, right?
Well, look, Alan Connolly's first goal, exactly.
Alan Connolly's first goal, where players now are deciding themselves, right? Am I going to commit? Am I going to drag him down out of fear of getting the black card and being gone for 10 minutes? And if you had a referee behind the goal, that would cut out all that nonsense and silly stuff that does be ongoing off the ball.
The only problem with that, Mull, is, and with the amount of games that were going on, let's say yesterday, and the amount that were going on next Sunday, and we barely have enough refs in the first instance. That's probably now for an All-Ireland final, All-Ireland semi-finals, etc., where there's not that many games going on in a weekend. I do think it's a no-brainer. I think
very. I cut you out there now, right? Not enough refs that are probably, you know, up to the level of officiating.
Being in the man level, yeah. And
I'm on about club refs.
Okay.
So you Tyler Welch there yesterday, who for me, I think Tyler is fastly grown into one of the best referees in the country. And I think it's only a matter of time before himself and Sean Stack are going to possibly do an All-Ireland. You take Liam Gordon yesterday, decent referee as well, right? So I would be saying to Sean Stack, Tyler Welch, Liam Gordon, I was saying, right, lads, you're friendly with local referees, right? So if there's 4 referees you can bring along in the car, and I keep going back to it, lads, like, they're not going to come for a cup of tea or a sandwich.
Or
proper expenses.
They need more than a cornet or a cup of tea, don't they?
More
than ham sandwiches.
Are you going to get me on that cornet story now?
No,
that's for another day, Verney. That's for another day, son.
But just I take your point on that, Mull. There are probably lads that maybe are not inter-county standard referees, but that are good club refs that could be utilised in that regard. That's
they'll benefit from the exposure too.
Yeah, 100%. They'll probably bring a better quality of officiating back to their local games or their local county. Just on the action, Ned, you kind of were writing in the Irish Independent this morning, and John mentioned it there, like Rodgers had the chance to put Clare 4 up and put them out of sight. Clare were not as clinical as you probably need to be at this stage. They kind of left the door open for Waterford.
Yeah, and I suppose if you were to look through even the league final and different matches now, the Limerick match even, and probably Davy Fitz, I'd say, when he was prepping his boys in Waterford, said to him, look lads, we'll get our time in this match, so hang in, and they did. And it was as much down to Clare's just, they were quite efficient off low percentage of possession in the first half, but Jesus, they butchered a few chances. And I can never understand, like, I know sometimes when you're coming at steam there, like Fitzgerald was for the one that he went straight down Sullivan's throat, like, and he just had to make the save straight over the head. Like, I can never understand that. Like, you look at Jake Morris, the way he zaps the ball, like it's skidding off the ground. I thought if they're clinical and tidy with those finishes, sometimes you don't need power. Just go in and pass it into the net. Just take those extra couple of steps. And I just thought at times there, they lost their way with a few Hail Marys in the second half. And they're real energy vampires when you look at it. And even Waterford are probably, when the Waterford players are on the pitch and they're seeing those shots not coming off, they're going, right, we have another chance. We get a chance. And it's probably a worry for Brian Lohan. And you hear all these things about, get so many shots off, to get over 40 shots a match. And I hear this is the buzzword. I just think if it's down to being tidier, like that's what it should be. And, this Clare team, for me, they created enough chances to win 2 matches yesterday. And I'd say, like, if they had to have got clipped yesterday, and they could have easily enough, Waterford could have snuck that match, they'd have no one to blame, only themselves. But, you know, you're saying, I just look at you, Shane O'Donnell in there. And lads, I've never seen, like, we prided ourselves on being, hey, just get the ball into us, we don't care what way it comes in. But Shane O'Donnell, lads, Jesus, he's like a rubber ball the way he bounces around, like, and he glides, and there's lads pulling and dragging out him. You never see him whinging to the refs, you never see him complaining. He's just like action man. And like that one that he fed off there, that I think it was Ian Galvin maybe got a point towards the end. Jeez, he was on his knees, he was up, he rose with Waterford lads coming in around him. And I just think if you have someone like him there, Jesus, isn't he some man as a focal point? He is just, the ball is like a magnet to him when he does get the ball in.
You just took
he
the
makes
words.
something happen.
You took the words out of him. I was going to mention they should nickname him the Magnet, yeah.
Oh, he like, and if you have someone like that when you're striking the ball from like, geez, that's ideal for him. And then, like, ideally, then you want Tony Kelly buzzing around him. If Tony is making those little runs from deep and he's floating off the shoulder, so that's how you try kill off a match. And that's why I suppose your messages are very simple to that. Say, lads, I often find, and I know them matches are taxing and heavy scalping, but I find the purpose of you getting your fresh legs in at the end of that match is run with the ball, carry the ball. Defenders are now tired, they're now fatigued, they have to make decisions, let you on or foul you. So it's a win-win. And I just think that, shooting from distance, kind of Hail Mary pot shots at times, I think, that needs to be looked at probably. I just think you can be a lot more efficient. But like Rodgers did have a glorious chance, and he seemed to have done everything right. He carried lovely, he steadied himself, and he possibly had too much time. He possibly needed to just swing into maybe his right and slap that. But at the same time, I just think it has to be said, like, Waterford deserve massive credit. I thought that they could have been very easy forgiven for just calfing there, because it looked as if that match was going to get really, really ugly. And in fairness to them, they rattled off 4 points in a row, I think, just before half-time. And then Clare got one. And then 4 points were significant. And then, look, you had a couple of, like, the goals. I thought, Jesus, some composure. With Shane Bennett to come in, and the bigger brother, Stevie, probably would have been fancying his chances on that. But by God, did he finish that. And that was a pressure penalty, lads. Jesus, you talk about a player. And Shane Bennett, a few years ago, he was flying for Waterford. He's had a kind of an indifferent few years, and just come in there yesterday and without even hesitation, yeah, I'll take that, and he absolutely hung it up. So look, Patrick Fitzgerald, Tapari Fitzgerald made a great contribution. So
Kevin Manny was brilliant.
Kevin Manny, a couple of great points.
Manny was outstanding.
Even Bennett came forward, but I suppose the worry for Waterford was that, Jesus, they got breached a few times, and they just look. But hey, you live by the edge sometimes, and you survive. That's all you can do. And I just admired the spirit at which they fought. And you'd say, Jesus, they to be fair, they probably deserved a draw of that match. And sometimes it's cruel, but it's a fresh to get themselves right for next weekend's. And Limerick now with a fresh 2 weeks in the tank. Now it's going to be a tricky assignment. But look, that's Championship hurling. I think they have nothing to fear. I think Waterford are capable. It's just the likes of Stephen Bennett now and Jamie Byrne were taken off. Like, that's taxing weather on the legs. So I suppose the load this week is critical. You can do very little. It's all about getting to the Gillamine there and getting fresh and a good swim around today and just getting the body fresh for next weekends. And you just next week you just take off the handbrake and let fly.
Mull, do you think it's going to catch up on them? Realistically, should have beaten Tipperary, should have had an extra point on the board. We'd be very disappointed not to have gotten something out of that game yesterday. They get another point on the board and they're in pole position, we'll say, against Cork in a head-to-head potentially. Do you think they can rise again for, the ultimate challengers coming down the tracks next Sunday away to Limerick?
Yeah, well, I totally echo what Eddie said there. It's just getting the minds right, getting the bodies right. How much energy did that sap out of him yesterday, considering it was probably 22, 23 degrees heat. But you know what? They can take an enormous amount out of yesterday and they can take that into next week. And, geez, even from a Waterford supporter's point of view, I was immensely proud of the team yesterday. I was thoroughly disappointed how it finished. But so proud of them. The character they showed, the resilience as I touched on, and you know, the easiest thing there yesterday was to fold up and say, you know what, it's just not going to be our day. But lads, and you know only too well, when you start getting those characteristics into your game where you just keep coming back, you keep coming back, there'll be one day you'll get rewarded. And I don't think they'll fear the challenge next Sunday. I think they'll look forward to it. And if I was a Waterford player, I would be saying, like, you know, you go back to 2010, everyone wanted to be the team to stop the drive for 5. Now Waterford are a team that find themselves in a position that we could be the team that could potentially stop the drive for 5. I'd say Dave Fitzgerald behind will be, you know, will be saying, I'd love to be the manager to stop the drive for 5. And what I think is going to be very, very key for Waterford next Sunday, and I plead with Waterford supporters that we need to get a big following up there next Sunday. You've seen, you know, how key it is. You know, you've seen it with Cork, you know, getting that level of support. It makes a major, major difference, lads. Even with small marginal calls, you know, if a roar goes up or a big roar goes up, it can help the side. And I think, you know, if we can get a good following up next Sunday, and if these Waterford players can rise again, and if they can bring to the table what they brought yesterday, and if they can get the likes of Prunty back, why not? Why not? I think they won't shy away from the challenge. And, you know, I will be saying, you know, go up, take on this Limerick team. You're looking at this Limerick team, they're going to be fearful as well, lads. You know,
but John, looking at this, sorry, John, just jump in there. Who's the pressure most on? If you said coming into the championship, right, the expectation wasn't really on Waterford as such, and I think they're coming out of this championship with massive credit. I think absolutely they have characteristics going forward that are going to help this team, because he is bringing through a fresh enough team, blending with a few older lads. But at the same time, and they won't want this, they don't want a moral victory for next year. But if you're looking at it, the pressure is all on Limerick. They could go out with a championship in their own backyards. They've a few injuries, and the pressure is cranking up. And you go back to what Kylie said last week about the vocal cords and all that. They're the little bits of pressure that are starting to crank up on them. And if you're Waterford, and I think Davy Fitz will love this challenge. He'd love to be the one. And I reckon if there's something to roll, maybe he'll roll it next week to try unsettle them a bit. But if you're in Waterford's position, and I know you want the win and all this, but who's the most pressure on? It's not Waterford. And Waterford can go away from home and say, lads, just smile on your face and say, lads, this could be a nice little notch on our belt to finish up the championship and get us through, finish up our round robin and get us through, lads. So there's a lot to get from Waterford. But in the overall scheme of things, you'd be saying, looking at this match from afar, saying this is going to be a tough ask. Limerick at home in the last match, Limerick needing to win, but the reward is unbelievable. Like,
it's set up.
I honestly believe, and look, others might disagree with me. I honestly believe we've the right manager going up there Sunday with this team. I think we've the right manager this week who will be trying to rally the troops. You know, get them back up again and say, lads, we can go up and we can embrace this challenge and take on this challenge. And I honestly do. I think he'll embrace it as well. And I honestly believe that. Would I have said it 12 months ago? Would I have said it in the aftermath of the league? I wouldn't have said it. But I firmly believe that we have the right man bringing this team up to Limerick and embracing that challenge. And you know, the one thing what I loved about Davy yesterday, lads, and look, what happened in the aftermath happened, and look, it probably didn't come across well on the TV cameras. But the one thing I loved about Davy yesterday, and we didn't see in previous encounters with Clare, whether when he was with Wexford or with Waterford last year, he was always mindful of, you know, loan, and he was always mindful of the Clare following. And I felt even on previous occasions when he came up against his own county that he was a bit kind of, you know, he wasn't himself, and he was kind of a bit quiet, and he wasn't erratic on the line. And I seen a big change to Davy yesterday. He was fighting every ball. He was fighting with officials, you know, and I seen the Davy that I didn't see before when he came up against his own county. And I was very encouraged and very delighted to see that from Davy yesterday.
Just on that game the next day, the permutations are kind of mad. If it does finish a draw, Waterford and Limerick the next day, Cork will end up out of the championship, which would be
Jesus.
like, when I put it to Eddie, like on current form, Cork are probably the most likely team to stop the drive for 5, I would say, on current form. But there's a possibility that they won't be in the championship to do it if results go against them. But just on Cork, like that was breathtaking yesterday, considering what they'd done, 8 days previous against Limerick in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and all the emotion that came with it and all the energy deficit that should have came with it. And they were brilliant yesterday. Like, they are hopping at the minute.
They are, and it'll be, it's a bit like I was watching Shane Lowry Saturday night on that last putt. And you could see by him, you knew by Shane, because he's that kind of fella. He's hard on himself. And it's just going to be a bit like that for Cork. Like, they could end up with nothing. And they had that, that's the mad side of the way it is. And like, their form now is unbelievable. Like, and I said it again, like, the history with Cork and Tip means there's no advantage by being at home against the opposition. And, you knew Cork supporters love going to Thurles. They enjoy the atmosphere there. And you could just sense it from early. But the difference I see with Cork at the moment is, and you'd say fair play to Pat Ryan, he was under massive pressure coming out of that Waterford match. The Clare one, they were unlucky, they nearly had it. And then those changes that he made for the Clare match, like, you look at that defence now, that defence looks a little bit more stable than it was. I think the two Downies have kind of bedded down now as the spine. Coleman looks himself. And what I seen with Coleman even yesterday, geez, he stood up. One of the, I don't know, Darren McCarthy or one of them. It was a good manly tackle. Like, he normally, that you wouldn't associate that with Coleman, but there seems to be a little bit. The bit is between the teeth of this Cork team, and this is, I suppose, what we've seen for a few seasons with them. And until such time as they get through to an All-Ireland final and finish the job. But lads, I think, and I know we've said it a while, and we've always come back and we're left disappointed with them at times when we talk about their defensive stability. But this Cork team are on the brink, lads. If they can get through, you'd say just right now on current form, and it can change very quickly, but on current form, lads, they look like the real deal. They have energy. They have the hot shot forward. I was wondering earlier on this year, we said about Hoggy after the Waterford match. I think on this podcast on the Monday, I said, Jesus, is he goosed? And Jesus, he's after rolling back with a couple of big performances yesterday. He was getting fed with unbelievable ball. And then you turn around and you can roll Shane Kingston. And look, that's typical Cork. When their tails are up, they'll nail you, they'll bury you, and they'll rack up a score. But like, to have the wheels to bring in, like, Jesus, Jack O'Connor, did he even see action yesterday? Like, Shane Barris is hurling fierce well. And like, obviously, Alan Connolly then is just the top of his form. But
he's a machine, lads. He's a machine. He's so direct. And we've been talking ball at the moment.
And we've been talking about him for the last couple of seasons. I've liked him from the first time I saw him, because you just see a real directness in him. He is looking for goals. He's goal hungry. He's very tidy in around the square. He'll finish. And like yesterday was that's coming a while. I think, did he have a hat trick earlier on the league or two?
2, yeah.
2 hat tricks. So like, lads, that's what, like, we spoke about it, and the lad at the other side there has a few. But like, to score 3 hat tricks, lads, in the one calendar year, and in Thurles against Tip to bag up a hat trick, like, that's some clipping, like. And if, look, Cork are obviously going to be lighting candles and saying a few novenas that Limerick does not end in a draw with Waterford on Sunday. Jesus, lads, Cork can't make the Munster final, but if you're going to be the losing team in Leinster and whatever happens with the McDonagh, Jesus, you would not want to see, if you lose the Leinster final, will you want to potentially see Cork coming at you? Oh God, maybe Thurles or maybe Croke Park. So like, if they can get through, lads, they're just coming. They're lifting at a real right time. That old bet you talked about last week, Mull.
Yeah.
And that's not even, you're not even touching on Robbie O'Flynn, or, I mean, the talk yesterday is that Kieran Joyce won't get back into the team. But if Kieran Joyce don't get back into that team, I mean, look, I don't care.
But on current form, you have to go with what the lads have. Joyce is Joyce.
No, I don't care. Kieran Joyce for me goes back into that. Look, if they survive, Kieran Joyce for me goes back into that team, whether it be wing back or whether it be midfield, or whether you push Tim O'Mahony into midfield or Kieran Joyce goes into midfield itself. But lads, Don't rule out the draw. I'm telling you, if this Limerick and Waterford match was a soccer match the weekend, it'd be tip-tappy. We'll play out the draw, knowing that Limerick are going to be in the Munster final, Waterford are going to be in a quarter final, and you know what? We'll get rid of Cork. But unfortunately, it's not a soccer match. It's going to be a GA match. But lads, John Mullane loves squeaky bum time, and I'm telling you now, lads, if squeaky bum time arises on Sunday, do not rule out the draw. As you touched on, Eddie, there'll be an awful lot of this. There'll be an awful lot of that on Sunday on behalf of the Cork players. You know, but you cannot rule anything out, lads. You cannot.
No.
Isn't it set up lovely? If Limerick lose, they're gone. If Waterford lose, they're gone. If it's a draw, Cork are gone. You couldn't have asked for any more.
And also, lads, and it's hard to see it happening right now, but what if Tip interfere with it and go along and bait Clare? Like, do you know, and I know it looks unlikely, they look in a bad place.
Well, Ned, I tell you what, it
happened last year against Waterford.
It looked unlikely last year. Tip were in the Munster final last year until Waterford showed up and completely ripped up the script, and had it ended a draw between Cork and Limerick, Tip would have been out of the championship.
Yeah, and that's it. And Muller's, again, you're throwing in your squeaky bum time, absolutely, but you forgot to say first is that there's kitchen things to be thrown at lads as well. So, you know, it's all piling up for next weekend. It's going to be epic. And sure, like, isn't that what we wanted? For me, it's the best round robin I recall, and we haven't even got onto what can happen in Leinster. I know it's maybe not as dramatic, but there's certainly consequences for next weekend. You know, for we'll get to that in a second.
We're talking about Cork being in unbelievable form. And Eddie, on the flip of that, and you know they're your great rivals, but you hardly take much satisfaction in the way Tipperary are going at the minute, because hurling kind of needs Tipperary at the top table and performing really well. Like, they were beaten out the gate yesterday. There's no point in saying any different, and they're in a really difficult spot, and Liam Cattle's in a really difficult spot as well at the minute.
What you say there again? I wouldn't be. Oh, I know. No, sorry, no.
Maybe you do take some satisfaction, but yeah, you know, they're my neighbours as well. But I'd prefer to see them. I'd prefer to not be talking about them in this light too. You know what I mean?
No, 100%, Michael. I think, like, yesterday we wanted an epic yesterday, and look, just at the moment, and we said it. Look, we saw a fair fight out of Tipperary the day against Waterford below, and they're disappointed themselves. I say Liam Cahill more frustrated than anyone. But look, we need Tipperary trashing well. We needed, you know, that doesn't help anyone. And, you know, you'd say, Jesus, for the championship, you need that. You wanted a cracker there. Yes, so we wanted an epic there. And you just sensed that once the second goal went in, it was punch for punch, and there was a bit of tennis going on, and then bang, Cork at the first goal, and you just go, Jesus. And once they got the second one, you just seen the life just drained out of Tip. And look, I think it's fair to say, and no matter what we wanted, like, Liam Cahill wanted that Tip job. He's got it. And yes, he has a fair few personnel that he brought through with 21 and a 20 All-Ireland. But at the same time, I think it's fair to say Tipperary aren't stacked with depth at the moment, and they're probably not, you know, you don't replace lads like Seamie Callanan too easy. You don't replace quality like that. Like, even John McGrath, you know, in 16, 17, geez, John McGrath was flying. He's a shadow of himself now, and he's had injuries, like an Achilles injury is a big, big injury. And, you know, the concern is that, class and all, as Noel McGrath is, like, to think that he's still the glue there at the moment and still with their go-to. Like, that pass for the first goal was just phenomenal. You know, yes, a lesser player would have been picking off a point there, and he scored a point then going away from goal, heading to the stand. And that's the concern for Tip. Is now you're looking at Bonner Maher, another guy you have absolute massive respect for. What a servant he has been. And, you know, you just wonder, is there a bit of a change coming in Tip? Like, there's a few more now probably going to move on. But he has a decent rebuilding job to do. And I don't know where, you know, their 20s are in the Munster final. So are they going to be ready in 2 years' time? Hard to know. You know, a couple of good lads there, Paddy McCormack and one or two more coming through there, Darren McCarthy from Toomevara, some good players. But they look to be a little bit off it just yet. And the Munster Championship, you know, you need a Tipperary team that's trashing well. And looking at what, you know, a big defeat to Limerick away, a big defeat to Cork, your big rivals in your own patch. there's going to be a lot of soul searching in Tip for the winter. And in fairness to Liam Cahill, he's not shying away from that. And that's a difficult spot to be in. I don't care, like, much and all as you might, we all have our rivals and that side of it. That's a tough place to be for any manager, because when it's your own county, it's a real important one to you. And it's a tough spot. He's going to ship a fair bit of blame. That's the nature of the beast. But that was a tough place to be for Tipperary players yesterday, because they are a proud hurling county. They'll be disappointed by that, and they'll be frustrated by that.
Even Mull, like, it looks like there was so many more Cork people there in Thurles yesterday on your home ground. Like, Cork they're obviously not, you wouldn't say they were flying up until a week ago, but they have, the public totally in behind them. Doesn't look like the Tip team has it at the minute. And I would suspect they're not going to get much of a crowd at the weekend. But Cahill's facing a big rebuild, Mull, by all accounts, and I think he knows that.
No, and it's kind of, if you're a player, it's deflating for a player where you're playing a home match and you've probably 35, nearly 40,000 people from the opposing team. Lads, Jesus, I mean, the Cork supporters, that's just outrageous what they done yesterday. I mean, to bring that type of crowd to Thurles, they're just, and you know what? They're probably the biggest institution in within the GA, and I'd say Croke Park, the GA themselves are hoping that they survive the Munster Championship. But if you're a Tipperary player, and if you're going for a score and you're hearing the heckle of a crowd, there's nothing worse and I can understand where they're dropped. Why you could drop your heads, but lads, a county like Tipperary was supposed to be within the so-called big three. You can't be losing matches by 18 points, losing matches by 15 points. I could understand maybe one every so often, but like, this has happened now in 2 out of 3 years. It happened under Colin Bonner, and poor Colin Bonner then was moved aside, and I'd say even Colin Bonner probably felt a bit. He probably didn't enjoy watching that, Jesse, but I'd say he probably felt a bit better to say, well, hold on now a minute. Maybe I was probably a little bit hard done by. But it's just where Tipperary are right now. I've no doubt that Liam will take on the challenge. I hope the Tipperary County Board will back him. And if I was the Tipperary County Board now, I'd say, you know what, Liam, we're going to give you the next 3 years, and we're going to leave you rebuild this team and try and bring Tipperary hurling back to being competitive again before they go and challenge for honours again. Yeah,
I think that's really important. And much and all, like you said, well, the rivalry aside, I think that's very important. The one thing you don't want now, and I think like the Tipperary supporters have to say, well, look, were we found wanting yesterday? Maybe they were. And then, you have to go support your team through thick and thin. And I think the one thing that I suppose, let the dust settle a little bit. It's a hard pill to swallow. But what they need to do, is just turn around and say, look, lads, let's see where we can go with this or what we can do. But I don't think it's the time for making any big changes. I think, Liam Cahill is a very, very proud Tipperary man. He will want nothing more than the best for Tipperary. And I think if you're looking at sticking with your man and seeing it out, I think if 12 months' time you're at the same juncture, then I could understand a little bit with maybe the heat being on, and there is heat on now, but I definitely think it's not the time to make any knee-jerk decisions. I think definitely give them at least 2 more years and then see where it goes.
The two are singing "Stand by Your Manager" by the sounds of things. I'd be the same. Yeah. I'd be the same as well. I think if there's going to be a rebuild to be done, and there is, I think he's the man to do it. Ned, I know you were up in Donecarney the other night. The Cats got the job done just about. This game looked like it looked like the Leinster Championship was going to be, the script was going to be ripped up even more, maybe on 55 minutes when Brian Hayes puts in that goal to put Dublin 3 ahead. In fairness, you batten down the hatches, but it was far from perfect from Kilkenny, but you got the result in the wind-up, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah, I was up in Donecarney, and it's a great venue. It's a great atmosphere.
Isn't it unreal? Like, everyone's just on top of each other. It's class.
Yeah, no, and I was in the terrace there at the back of Owen Murphy's goal in the first half, and obviously we were kind of in line with Owen Cody when he came in and got the goal, and it was a little bit. Herself was kind of half looking at me going, "We're standing." we left it too late to get the tickets, so we ended up in the terrace. But I was actually delighted. I thoroughly enjoyed it. in the middle of all the Dub supporters, and it was brilliant. But yeah, it wasn't brilliant. I'd say Derek Ling was living on his nerves when that goal went in.
I'll follow on from that. I suppose when that Dublin roar went up, come on, you boys, in blue, and they were 4 points up. You have to give great credit to the response and the reaction from the Kilkenny players. And look, they've done it time and time again. And, probably names that you wouldn't probably associate in previous years really stepped up. John Donnelly again, he had 6-7 points. Mossy Keown, David Blanchfield, Billy Ryan done exceptionally well when he came on. And the finish from Cody, that was an unbelievable finish. Right, you can question the amount of steps that were taken, but Cody to take on that leadership, and now Kilkenny all of a sudden they're back in the mix. That secures qualification. That's going to be a bumper game now this Sunday against Wexford. It's nearly a winner takes all now. Who gets well into final, and that's again, as I touched on, it's one to really look forward to. But great credit to the Cats. They reacted well. They reacted well in the aftermath of that Carlow draw. And look, if you're Derek Ling, I think he'll be very, very pleased that they've come away from Parnell Park with the 2 points and they're back on track.
Just something you mentioned there, Mull, actually, like it is quickly maybe becoming David Blanchfield's team and John Donnelly's team and Cian Kenny's team and Mossy Keown's team. A lot of new faces kind of stepping up, which they need as well. I'd say it was a tough week, and even just from chatting to Derek after I was covering the game for the paper, like I'd say it was a tough week, and even with the 20s been beaten during the week, but now they're back and in a nice position going into that Wexford game. From a Dublin point of view though, John, you'd have to say it was a bit of a missed opportunity. Brian Hayes puts that goal in, they go 3 up, 11 minutes without the next score. I'll throw it back to you, Ned. 11 minutes without the next score, and that was the time just to kick on. And in fairness, they were ground down a bit by Kilkenny, but they found scores and possession very, very hard to come by in that last 20 minutes.
Yeah, they did. And as I was saying, I was cut off about, Derek Ling when that goal went in, but Sean Brennan had been brilliant. I thought he gave them massive platform. They schooled Kilkenny off puckouts in the first half. They walked the ball up the pitch. And the Kilkenny forwards, I think if there's a fix for the Kilkenny forwards, because they're going to get something similar off Wexford next weekend, the Kilkenny forwards have to work when they don't have the ball. They got some good turnovers at times, but I think at other times they just didn't. They got caught tracking their men. And in fairness to Dublin, they had lovely little moves. There was always someone wrapping around. There was always a runner off the shoulder. And that's one thing Dublin bring is energy. But just on that, a few little missed passes here and there, they just hadn't, they probably hadn't the quality. They needed someone like a John Donnelly or like a Blanchfield in those clutch moments that just takes that match by the scruff of the neck. And I thought up to that, Jesus, Chris Crummy, what an exhibition he gave. He was absolutely, we pride ourselves on being able to field ball. By God, did he pluck balls out of the sky there the other night amidst rucks of fellas. And, like you said there was 4 or 5 guys for Kilkenny, were to the 4. I think even there was a few decisions that Dublin could have got if on another day, there was a few little dodgy decisions.
He all done it, who's a quiet enough man, Eddie, but he was out, he was pulling on the line, just little things. I remember one call. I remember Mikey Butler lost the ball going forward and basically did a clear out of a ruck, and I don't know how he got away with it.
Yeah, and even too, TJ got pinged for 2 over carries. I thought were really harsh because he missed probably the big one for the goal. But look, over the course of the game, I think just the like they say, I suppose the shooting just went a little bit cold on Dublin at times. I think there was another very good chance on more Ronan Hayes had a glorious chance. And at that time, Dublin were in the ascendancy and Kilkenny were just hanging by a thread. The Dublin backs had them well marshalled. But then I was just looking at the Kilkenny forward. Billy Ryan brought great energy when he came in, won a couple of important balls. But the Kilkenny forward then kind of seemed to just fan out very much to the sidelines in the half line. And they just created a bit more space around. And Dublin just struggled to kind of control them. And I think John Donnelly picked off a couple of nice points in that space. But look, I thought, to be fair, a bit like Waterford, Dublin deserved more out of that match than the loss. but they have everything to play for, lads. And they, you know, I don't know who will fancy this one. In fairness, like Galway aren't trashing. Okay, they come out last weekend with a big score, but there's no way Dublin will be phased or fearful of going to Salt Hill next weekend. They have everything to play for, and you know what a reward it would be for them if they can get through. And I just I'm can't wait for Sunday. I really cannot wait for Sunday in Nolan Park. Again, the Kilkenny supporters need to get out numbers, because I know, well, as Muller says, the Wexicans will travel, and like it's going to be some atmosphere, and there's a lot on the line. It's a Wexford, it's a Leinster semi-final in both matches, so it's brilliant.
Ned, where you were standing on behind the goal, you know you're behind Owen Cody's goal, but were you behind Owen Murphy's save in the first half as well?
Phenomenal, absolutely. How he got down, because there was bodies in front of him, and you know I think Owen Murphy up to now maybe was a little bit off colour, but geez, in the first half he found some beauts of puck outs. He he found John Donnelly with an absolute beaut in the first half. And there was a couple of times where he pinged lads and it was straight over the bar from it. But I was right behind that one, and you could see the bodies coming across. And I was like, oh no, you could see it. He was coming too hard. I said, Jesus, there's no way he'll get across. And he guessed right, and just a lovely little touch around the corner. And it's a real killer, because I've been in those situations where you think there's no way the goalie's going to get to this, and the fecker gets across. But thank God he did, because it was a big, big save. Just before the first goal.
Conor Burke's goal, lads, was some pasture play. Now look, yeah. I know Luke Meade done it with Connolly, but Conor Burke's goal was just magical to watch. And I was even impressed by him against Antrim. They're running off the shoulder, you know, some of their link play. And I think, lads, they have legs, and I think, you know, they will trouble Galway next week. With runners through the middle.
100% that, Muller. I was just going to say, like, Galway have been down on energy at the moment, and yeah, I looked at that team that played there on Saturday. They look to be a little bit more solid look about them. But again, Dublin bring that energy and bring that running game. They'll fancy it against Galway, and it's one thing that Galway won't want to see coming is massive energy like that and running coming at them.
Galway took care of Antrim down the home stretch the other day, and I'd say one of the performances of the weekend, like, Wexford ruthlessly disposed of Carlow. I know it was a week on or 8 days on from getting a draw against Kilkenny, one of the best results in their history, but this was maybe an un-Wexford-like performance, because they don't tend to really bring the heat against what are viewed as inferior opposition. Like, they put up an absolute monstrous tally. Like, they're rocking into Nolan Park next week all of a sudden on the back of beating Galway and absolutely laying waste to Carlow. Like, Wexford, I don't know if that Antrim game was the kick up the rear they needed or whatever, but they are in good form now, serious form.
Yeah, their big players are up front. They're in good form. The likes of Chin is in hurler of the year form. Rory O'Connor's playing out of his skin. MacDonald is back on track. You've Dunbar, Richie Lauder's playing very well. Liam Ryan. Be very interested if they can get Dee O'Keefe back on the field. And yeah, look, they'll fancy going to Nolan Park, but I think the Cats will be on their guard, and I think Derek Ling, the Kilkenny players, they'll be really, really, really hammering home this week, saying, well, look, lads, they've beaten us on the last 3 occasions they've beaten Kilkenny, or is it 2?
I think yeah, but Kilkenny haven't beaten them in quite some time. There's been a couple of draws, so I pressure.
I think it's set up lovely. I think Derek Ling, Kilkenny team, they'll be eager to get one over in Wexford. And, you know, Wexford, they find themselves in cracking form. No better form to be bringing to Nolan Park. And they'll need that form if they're to get over this Kilkenny team on Sunday.
Eddie, I know Munster dominates the conversation, but, like, we've 3 games all thrown in at 2 o'clock on Sunday. You've Dublin heading to Galway. You don't know who's going to remain in the Leinster Championship after it. Wexford heading to Nolan Park. Again, there are some permutations where Kilkenny could end up, you know, out of the top 3. And then you have Carlow against Antrim. This is, I'd imagine when the round robin came through at Special Congress, I think it was September of 2017, that it was for this type of scenario that they wanted. Like, there's just drama dripping all over it.
Well, you cast your mind back to 2019, and I remember well, watching the match where Kilkenny and Wexford had a real arm wrestle below in Wexford Park, and at the very end of the match I can still see, Davy Fitz kind of asking what's going on, because you knew the other match was going on. It was like City and United back in 2013. So you had that going on, and that's what's going to happen this weekend. I mean, for some team, like, I mean, what if Galway find themselves chasing the match and just say Kilkenny and Wexford are drawn? So there's massive potential for it. And even like Antrim and Carlow is a big game now as well, because one of them will want to stay in the Leinster Championship next year and try kick on again. But it couldn't be better. And I think just from John just put on it there, like Wexford are coming in fine form. Wexford have come to Nolan Park, I think, since 2016. 2016 might have been the last time. I think they shipped a big beating in Nolan Park, I think under Liam Dunn. And after that, then they've got a stranglehold of Kilkenny. And I think it's one of those times where, like in the history of Wexford and Kilkenny, where there's very little ever between them, but it's probably one that Kilkenny needs to come out and make a bit of a statement. And I think, like you said there's a few lads, they're starting to be the leaders in this Kilkenny team. Like John Donnelly is in super form and ably assisted. Mossy Keown is on a rich vein of form this year. Cian Kenny really well. They Blanchfield, they're coming into their own. And Paddy Deegan, look, he wasn't himself last Saturday. He's still done a lot of good things. He's still going to give you such energy, and he gives you everything. Mikey Carey be glad of that match. So I think it's probably one that there's a little bit of pressure off Kilkenny as such, and that's where sometimes that can allow your team to maybe play with a small bit more freedom and actually go after this match. And I think one thing that Kilkenny will want to do, just let off the handbrake and go for it. Really, really go after Wexford and try to get a foothold in this match, because this current crop of Wexford players do not have any hang-ups about playing Kilkenny like maybe previous Wexford teams do. So they're going to come with no fear, and I think it has the ingredients of a cracker, and I'd love to see a couple of early goals. Obviously, I want to see him going into the Wexford net, but I think if we're looking for a cracking game, if we can get a couple of early goals in the first 20 minutes for both sides, it then has the making of a classic. I was in there a couple of years ago when Kilkenny came back from a big lead at half-time. Wexford were really, really running through them heavy and hard, put up a big 8 or 9 point lead, and Kilkenny made a comeback, and it was just a roller coaster of emotion. I wouldn't like the same, but I think it has the ingredients of a great game, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, it's absolutely set up to be a brilliant weekend. Just on the weekend just gone, Mull, I'll throw it to you, your moment of the weekend.
Stephen Bennett's goal. It was an unbelievable goal. He was going down the side, and when we were coming under pressure, 4 points down, he sensed that Cleary was after losing his hurley, and it was a bit of an entanglement. And he was very clever that he known that he kind of put his foot out, knowing that Cleary, and I've often done it myself, and probably Eddie done as well, put his foot out, knowing that Cleary was probably going to trip over his foot. He couldn't catch the ball again, battled to the ground, got himself an extra two catches, gained himself a yard and stuck it in the back of the net. An unbelievable finish. I just thought it was a magical goal, a stunning goal from Steve Bennett. So that's my moment of the week.
And just the timing of it, Mull, as well, when it was just needed at that moment. He needed a bit of class, a bit of genius, and he definitely came up with it. Ned, your moment of the week?
I'm kind of torn. I had initially leaning towards Connolly's goal, because I'm a big fan of this fella. I really, really like this fella. But I suppose I'm going to jump back to our own lads, and there's a little moment there where Owen Murphy passes the ball to Tommy Welsh. Tommy Welsh loses the ball, and Dublin are heading for an empty goal. And Owen Murphy, I think, slows up Cian O'Sullivan, I think it is, in that first half. And Tommy Welsh, then by Owen Murphy slowing him up, Tommy Welsh is able to get the hook in. And like that could be a significant moment come the Leinster final, come later on this year for Kilkenny, because if Dublin get a second goal in after getting the first one, I think there's huge momentum there. So that to me could be a big moment as the year goes on. And like I said there, I was torn, because I obviously, like John, we're a little bit biased towards the attacking union of Ireland, the forwards union of Ireland. But no, I'm going to give it to that one. I think Owen Murphy got a good tackle on Cian O'Sullivan and had to get back off him quickly, because there was a black card on the horizon. And then Tommy Welsh was able to recover a mistake, and it was potential to be a huge boo-boo.
My moment of the weekend is the Offaly hurlers getting over Kerry in convincing fashion at the weekend and booking their Joe McDonagh Cup final place. A little shot at retribution against Laois, and we've an under-20 final coming up on Wednesday night as well, boys. I honestly, genuinely feel it's like the 90s all over again, except you're a bit older and you get to appreciate it a bit more. It's great times in Offaly at the minute. But that's it for a packed show this week. My thanks to Eddie Brennan and John Mullane for joining me once again. We'll be back next week, and in the meantime, don't forget to rate, review and follow the show on Apple, Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. Thanks a million for listening, and goodbye.